Hello everyone, this is Neo. Today we're going to be making a new YouTube series for Blender making N64 style graphics. So before we start modeling, you're going to want to have a 256 by 256 texture, or you could have it any size you'd like. Just make sure that the squares here are proportional. For me, I have 64 by 64 per each square, and it is repeating until 256 by 256. So I already have a texture atlas here. Now, if you are gonna try to make something similar to this, make sure that when you're making the broom part, which is gonna be here, you want to make sure that the background here has no tile, because we're gonna be using an alpha shader inside of Blender, which may sound scary, but it is just connecting one thing and then we're toggling a setting. That is all. It is not in depth, but yeah, make sure that you also have a face texture here. You can also have it mirrored on the same side. It doesn't matter because we can also use a mirror parameter to mirror the texture on the other side. So here we are going to start on Blender. We're going to have a normal cube. What you'll want to do is go under the filter and then toggle selectable here. This way, when we are about to add our references, which will be in the collection, I did right click and then clicked on new, and we will rename this to ref for references. This way we can toggle the button here so we cannot accidentally select them. So we'll toggle reference collection and then go under add in object mode, go to image and then click on reference and then select your picture. You can toggle off align to view and then load reference. You will need to make sure that you have the correct rotation. And there we go. So we can move this back and we can also duplicate. This way we are able to have two different angles that we can watch our reference from. There we go. So if you're looking for a reference, I highly suggest you go onto a search engine and you type in orthographic character sheet. This is where I found this character sheet. And what we'll want to do next is toggle off this button so we don't accidentally select these references. So we can go onto the planes here on this gimbly, and we can press Alt-Z to go into X-ray mode. So adjust your reference before we begin. What I did there was G, press G, and then X to move on the X plane. You can also do GZ, GY, and GX. Doesn't matter as long as it's a plane. There we go. Okay, now we can begin. So we can start by going on our side profile, and then we click and go on to edit mode. I will first start off by making the torso part, and we will adjust via the reference. Now what we'll do next is select this, and then we will do I, and then we will push inwards to create our belt. And then I'll press E to go upwards. Now I pressed A to select all, and then I'm pressing G and then Z to go up. So now we can just rotate a little bit and adjust before we move on. So I am selecting all these vertices under X-ray mode, which was Alt-Z, and then we're going to press E to extrude again, and then we will scale outwards. And once again, you can keep adjusting. Now I will press I again, and then I will extrude, and I'll press S and then X to scale inwards in order to make the neck. Then I'll press G and then Z to go up. Forgot to press E before. Then we can continue going up. So under our object mode, we'll want to go under collection and then click add a cube. We will select the cube and then we will move it up and then scale it down. Pressing S and then dragging inwards. Now what we'll do here is cut this into segments. So we'll do Control R, then click in the middle, and then Control R vertically and horizontally both. And then we will select the bottom part of this cube, and then we will press E and then move downwards. And then we can scale in. And then we could hide this if it bothers you and begin moving it and sculpting around our silhouette here. So what we can do next is we can add a subdivision modifier or subdivision surface over here by going from here to our modifiers, which is the wrench. Then we click on subdivision surface. And what technique I'm going to show you is how to work down from a high poly model that we can use from this subdivision modifier. And later we're going to use the decimate modifier to lessen the amount of polygons that our character has. So what we're going to do here is just fix the nose really quick. We can make some divisions here. If that's a little hard for you to see, I can turn down the viewports. What I'm going to do is bring these two parts back, and I'm going to make the nose more pronounced in the middle. Then we got more of a nose. And then if we bring back the viewports up, we have a better looking nose now. I can actually move this reference here. I'm going to be moving it on the y-axis. Oh, that's not my reference. So we will be moving our reference a little bit more back. You can also just duplicate it and then move it up. Make sure it is inside the references. And then we can deselect. Now what I'm going to be doing here for this next part is I'm actually going to delete half of the faces here. Oh, but first make sure that you are in X-ray mode. And then what we'll do is go on our modifiers, and then we will click on mirror. Now you will have to enable clipping and then press G on the x-axis or whichever axis you're on, and then we will move them out. So currently my right side is the part that we're going to be editing, and that will be reflecting on the other side. This will take a lot of tweaking on your end in order to be able to achieve the face that you want. I'm personally not aiming for a perfect face, but rather just making a face for a tutorial to base off of. We will want to enable, oh, there we go. We will want to enable our other shader, or our other modifier, which will be the subdivision modifier. So under our body, we'll add a subdivision surface, and now we can edit. So what we're going to do here is the same as we did for a head. We are going to select the other half of our body, and then we'll delete. And then we will go under our modifiers, and then we will add a mirror modifier. You'll want to make sure that we have our clipping on and is on the correct axis. And then we move, I pressed A and then press G, and then I'm going to move it on the X axis. So now I can also move these parts together so they connect. Then I'll move upwards. There we go. So make any final changes before we continue on. Now, the next part we'll want to do is go onto our planes, and then we will extrude outwards. So we will have our arm here, then we'll press E, and then it'll move on the according axis. So these will be our arms, and then we can make our elbows. Now we can do Control R, and then we can select an area where we will be adding a small bump in the middle, and then we'll do another Control R. Then close to this part where we'll be making the bump for the elbow, we'll press S and then scale on the Z axis down. On this end, you can also do the same. Now make sure that the arms here, they're not too wide. There we go. So in our case, we have a character who has sleeves. So what we'll want to do is do Control R and then click in the middle close to where the sleeves would be, which would actually be right on the elbow. Then we can scale out, select this part of the arm here, then do G and then X. Really looking at this plane, but you'll want to look more here. You'll want to press G and then X, and then you want to continue going in until you notice that there's this beginning of like a creation of sleeves, as you can see on this other side here. Okay, now we can move on to the legs. So the legs can be separate here. So what we'll want to do is go under our collection, and then we will be adding a cube. And then we're going to want to go on our axis where we can see the front view. And then we'll scale down to about the length of the leg. And then we'll press G and then S. So you're going to want to make sure that the middle part of the cube here is in the middle of the character, because we're going to take the cube here, press A and then G and then Z, or G and then X. So now that we have that, we can go into our mirror modifier, and now you'll see that we'll have it perfectly on the other side. Because if you were to move it in here and then try to use the mirror modifier, you wouldn't see anything. Rather, you would have to select the actual cube you're referencing off of and then move it out. So what we can do here is just move our leg upward, and we can just rotate inwards. Then at the bottom, we can select our bottom plane, and then we can press E, then we can bring it down. And we can just rotate and select the bottom plane and then bring it down. Now what you can do is bring this all the way down to, I'd say, around the ankles. Then we can do Control R and make an insertion here. Then select this part of the calf here, then rotate outwards to make a little calf. Then we can just adjust accordingly to our reference. There we go. Then we can just fix it on the side. Now you can toggle off temporarily the axis of where you're handling the model. Then we can just adjust here. Then I did Control R to create a loop cut and then move it out to make our calf. And now we can enable our mirror again. Now we will want to also add our subdivision so we can do some more editing before we continue. Okay, so now for our shoe, what we can do is extrude from the bottom here, extrude downwards, and then select the front of that new extrusion, and then we go out here. Then we can just rotate downwards by using R, or we can also use the gimli here. And then we'll want to just move a little bit on the back here to give it more of a shoe or a foot look. And there we go. So now we have that part done. What we can do next is flatten the bottom of our dress here. Now I'm actually going to edit the head because I'm not too happy with the way it looks. Now we will want to also make some of the accessories, which will include the hat and the hair over there. So what we will do for the hair is make sure that we have applied our modifier. So if I was in subdivision right now, I would just go under the arrow down here and click on apply, but I've already applied. So what we'll want to do next is go onto the side with mirror still applied and take half or the side of the head, whichever place you would like to apply hair to, and then we will separate it. So I will do P and we'll separate by selection. And then you'll want to go on the latest selection here and then do Control C to copy it. Then do Control Z. And then we will go into object mode and then click in the scene collection here and then click or do Control V. So now we have this piece of hair that we can fill in. So what we can do is hide our head and actually don't need to hide the head, but what we'll do is go under modifiers and then click on solidify, and then we will just add thickness to our hair. So as you can see, and best way to start shaping our hair will be by adding or doing a cutting in edit mode. So we'll do K, we'll press K, and then we will cut along the lines of where we would want our hair. So like around here is good. Then we press enter, and now we have a bunch of cut vertices here. There we go. So we can just remove these vertices by shift and then select, and then we can just do delete and then delete faces. So now we have a decent outline of hair, and then we can start adjusting the hair to make it look better. So for this part, I'm actually going to extrude just a little bit. Then I'm going to extrude again. And then I will select, we'll make sure that our image is aligned. So what I did there was press G and then I pressed Z twice so it goes down this Z axis of the model. So now we can try to extrude outwards with this model, or scale, sorry. And there we go. Now we have a little witch's hat. That we can then texture. Now before we start texturing, we can make our broom, but I'm going to very quickly name some of our body parts here. So that'll be our dress, this will be our head, and this will be our hat. All right, that's all. So now we can add in a cylinder. The cylinder will be very low vertices. We can actually just make this 5, and we will scale it down. Doesn't have to be a big broom, but just make it long, and there we go. So now we will extrude out here at the very bottom just a little bit. And if you would like, you can also add some loop cuts to add some irregularities. So you can make it crooked. And we will go down here, go at the bottom. Then we will extrude again. This time this will be scaled out. And make it a little bit bigger. And just make sure that we have a little taper outwards to give it more of a straw coming out of the bottom look. So now we have our broom. You can adjust as you'd like. Now we will do the final part for our models, which is actually make them all low resolution. So we will apply to each model our decimate modifier, which is how it doesn't need it. We can, however, apply to the hair here. We'll apply our solidify modifier, and then we will bring the ratio slider down. Now, if you want to make sure that it is symmetrical and not asymmetrical, because the decimator will do that, you'll want to make sure to enable the symmetry here, then click on the correct axis. However, I'm not too concerned on making sure it's perfect. Now we will move on to the head. We will also apply this decimate modifier, and we'll bring it down. Then for our head, or for our dress, we will add another decimate and just bring it down. So a tip when decimating your models is you want to make sure that fine details such as the sleeve here are not lost. Otherwise, what will happen is, I'll show you. If you bring it down too much, then vertices start merging and then you lose the detail that you originally tried to aim for. We could also add a modifier to our calf, or calves. However, it is pretty low poly as it is. This will do. So now we have a much lower poly model. You can go under here under statistics, and you can see that we have 821 triangles, which is for N64 standards is pretty high, but it is for the player, which is pretty normal. You can always turn down the sliders and adjust as you need to get less triangles. If your aim is for performance, then you may want to worry about the amount of triangles that you have. Otherwise, most modern computers will be able to easily run this amount of triangles.